My fiancé left me stranded at the airport in the Bahamas after I brought up his gambling addiction. No ticket, no wallet, just my carry-on bag and a heart that was rapidly turning into a block of ice. It happened at the curbside drop-off of Lyndon Pindling International Airport. We were supposed to be flying home to Chicago after a romantic getaway that had turned into 5 days of Greg disappearing into the Atlantis casino while I sat by the pool alone. I had reached my breaking point that morning. I found the ATM receipts in his jeans pocket. $3,000, withdrawal after withdrawal. "Greg," I said as we unloaded the rental car, "we need to talk about the money. You promised you stopped." Greg's face, usually handsome in a frat boy kind of way, twisted into a snarl. The mask slipped. "You know what, Maya? You are a buzzkill," he spat. "I'm trying to relax. I'm trying to win us the money for the wedding, and you're nagging me like a fishwife. You lost $3,000, Greg. That was the catering deposit." He slammed the trunk shut. He looked at me. Then he looked at my purse, which was sitting on the driver's seat of the rental car. My passport was in there. My wallet was in there. "You think you're so smart," he said, his voice dangerously low. "You think you can lecture me? Let's see how you do on your own." He got back into the driver's seat. "Greg," I stepped forward. "Greg, my bag is in there." He locked the doors. He rolled down the window an inch. "Find your own way home, Maya. Maybe a night on the curb will teach you some respect." And then he drove off. He actually drove off. I stood there in my sundress and sandals, clutching the handle of my small carry-on roller. I watched the taillights of the rental car disappear toward the returns lot. I expected him to turn around. I expected him to be circling back, laughing at his cruel joke. 10 minutes passed, then 20. I checked my pockets. I had my phone, 14% battery, no charger. I walked into the terminal, my legs shaking. I went to the ticket counter. "I need to print my boarding pass," I told the agent, my voice trembling. "Maya Lynn." The agent typed. She frowned. "I'm sorry, ma'am. It looks like your ticket was canceled 10 minutes ago. Refund issued to the original cardholder." Greg, he had canceled my ticket from his phone on the drive away. I have no money," I whispered, tears finally spilling over. "He took my wallet, he took my passport." "You'll need to go to the U.S. Embassy for a temporary passport," the agent said sympathetically, but dismissively. "And you'll need to buy a new ticket." I walked away from the counter. I sat on a hard plastic bench near the entrance. I texted Greg. "Please, this isn't funny, come back." "Message not delivered. You have been blocked." I sat there for an hour. The reality set in. I was in a foreign country. I had no ID. I had no money. I had no food. I was stranded. I curled into a ball, trying to make myself invisible, trying to stop the panic attack that was constricting my throat. "Excuse me." The voice was deep, smooth, expensive. I looked up. Standing over me was a man. He looked to be about 35. He was wearing a linen suit that probably cost more than my car. He had dark hair, piercing blue eyes, and he looked exhausted. Not angry, just weary. "Are you okay?" he asked. "You've been staring at that wall for 40 minutes. You look like you're in shock." I wiped my face, trying to find some dignity. "I'm fine, I'm just waiting." "For the man who drove off in the silver Kia?" he asked. I froze. "You saw that?" "I was waiting for my driver. I saw him leave you. I saw him throw his phone on the passenger seat and laugh." The man sat down next to me, leaving a respectful distance. "He took your purse, didn't he?" I nodded, unable to speak. "I'm Julian," he said. "Maya," I croaked. "Well, Maya," Julian said, checking a Patek Philippe watch. "I have a proposition for you, and before I say it, I want you to know I'm not a creep. I'm just a man in a very desperate situation." I laughed bitterly. "You're in a desperate situation. I'm homeless in Nassau." "Taché," he smiled. It was a nice smile. "Here's the deal. My younger brother is getting married this weekend. In the Exumas, it's a high-profile event. My ex-girlfriend was supposed to be my plus one. She bilayed on me yesterday to run off with a DJ." He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "My mother is a shark. If I show up alone, she will spend the entire weekend trying to set me up with the daughter of a senator who I have zero interest in. I need a buffer. I need a date." I stared at him. "You're joking." "I have a private plane waiting on the tarmac," Julian said. "It leaves in 30 minutes. If you come with me, pretend to be my girlfriend, my new wonderful girlfriend, I will fly you back to Chicago on Monday morning. First class. I'll have my security team handle your passport issue. I'll buy you whatever you need for the weekend." He looked at me with intense, clear eyes. "You get a ride home and a luxury weekend. I get peace and quiet from my mother. Quid pro quo." My brain screamed stranger danger. My brain screamed this is how you get murdered. But then I thought about Greg. I thought about him sitting in first class right now, drinking a gin and tonic, thinking he had taught me a lesson. Thinking I was crying in the airport bathroom, helpless. If I said yes, I wasn't helpless. You're a billionaire, I asked skeptically. Technically, my family is, he corrected. I just manage the hedge fund. He pulled out his phone and Googled himself, Julian Thorpe. I looked at the screen. Yep, that was him, net worth, staggering. I looked at my carry-on bag. I looked at the exit doors. I have nothing to wear, I said. I have denim shorts and a bikini. Maya, Julian grinned, standing up and offering me a hand. That is the easiest problem in the world to solve. I took his hand. It was warm and firm. Fuck it, I said. Yes. The transition was jarring. 1 minute I was sitting on a plastic bench smelling like despair. 15 minutes later, I was walking across the tarmac toward a Gulfstream G650. The pilot nodded to me. The flight attendant handed me a chilled towel. Champagne, Julian asked as we settled into the cream leather seats. The whole bottle, I said. As the plane climbed out over the turquoise water, the adrenaline started to fade, replaced by a surreal calm. So, Julian said, turning his seat to face me, tell me about the guy who left you. I need to know what kind of low bar I have to clear to be an improvement. I told him about the gambling, the lies, the way Greg made me feel small so he could feel big. Julian listened. He didn't interrupt. He didn't check his phone. He just listened, his jaw tightening when I got to the part about the stolen catering money. He's a weak man, Julian said simply, and weak men do cruel things when they feel cornered. I just feel stupid, I admitted. I stayed for 3 years. You're not stupid, Julian said softly. You're loyal, there's a difference. He exploited that. We landed on a private airstrip in the Exumas. A car was waiting. We drove to a villa that looked like it belonged in a Bond movie. It was perched on a cliff, overlooking the ocean. This is the guest house, Julian said. You can have the master suite. I'll take the guest room. I want you to feel safe. Thank you, I said, and I meant it. Now, he clapped his hands. The stylist is waiting in the living room. The stylist. I texted ahead from the plane. We have a rehearsal dinner in 2 hours. You need a dress. I walked into the living room. There were racks of clothes, gowns, cocktail dresses, shoes, jewelry. A woman named Alina was waiting with a measuring tape. We're going for sophisticated but smitten, Julian told Alina. Then he looked at me. Pick whatever you want, keep it all. For the next hour, I wasn't Maya the stranded fiancé. I was a doll being dressed in silk and diamonds. I chose a deep emerald green backless dress that made my eyes pop. I put on heels that cost more than my rent. When I walked out onto the terrace where Julian was waiting, he stopped drinking his scotch. He stood up slowly. He looked me up and down, not with lust but with appreciation. Wow, he said. Too much, I asked, feeling suddenly shy. No, he offered his arm. It's perfect. My brother's going to be jealous and my mother is going to be speechless. Are you ready to play the role? I took a deep breath. I thought of Greg. I'm ready, I said. What's my backstory? We met at an art gallery in Chicago, Julian improvised. You're an architect. I'm a graphic designer. Close enough. You're brilliant, you're funny, and you swept me off my feet. And you? I asked, looking up at him. He leaned in close. He smelled like sandalwood and ocean air. Me, he whispered. I'm the luckiest man in the Bahamas because I found you. For a second, just a second, I forgot we were acting. Let's go, I said. The rehearsal dinner was a blur of introductions. This is Senator Davies. This is the Duchess of York. I shook hands. I smiled. I made polite conversation. And every time I felt out of my depth, I felt Julian's hand on the small of my back, steadying me. His family was intense. His mother, Alina, looked me over like I was a racehorse she was considering buying. So, Maya, Alina said over the lobster bisque. Julian tells me you've only been dating for a month. It's rather fast to bring someone to a family wedding, isn't it? The table went quiet. I looked at Julian. He was about to defend me. But I didn't need defending. I had survived Greg. I could survive a rich matriarch. Sometimes, Alina, I said, meeting her gaze with a smile. You just know, life is too short to waste time on the wrong people. When you find someone who treats you with respect, you don't let go. Alina stared at me. Then, a small, genuine smile cracked her icy face. Well said, she murmured. Well said. Under the table, Julian squeezed my hand. Later that night, back at the villa, we sat on the balcony watching the moon reflect on the water. You were amazing, Julian said. My mother actually likes you, that's a miracle. I meant what I said, I told him, about respect. Julian turned to me. The air was thick and humid. Maya, he said, I know this is fake. I know you're going through hell with your ex, but I haven't had this much fun in years. Me neither, I whispered. He leaned in. He didn't kiss me. He just brushed a strand of hair behind my ear, his fingers lingering on my cheek. If that idiot calls you, Julian said fiercely, don't answer. My phone buzzed on the table between us. It was Greg. Where are you? I'm at the hotel. I came back to the airport and you were gone. Stop playing games. I looked at the text. Then I looked at the billionaire standing in the moonlight, looking at me like I was the only person in the world. I picked up the phone. I looked at the text from Greg. Stop playing games. The audacity was breathtaking. He abandons me with no money, cancels my ticket, and now that he's scared, he frames it as me playing games. I looked at Julian. Is everything okay? He asked, noticing the tension in my shoulders. He's texting me, I said. He went back to the airport, he's panicking. Do you want to reply? Julian asked. He wasn't telling me what to do, he was giving me the choice. I typed, I'm fine, I handled it, don't contact me again. I hit send, then I turned off my phone. I'm done with him, I said, exhaling a breath I felt like I'd been holding for 3 years. Whatever happens after this weekend, I'm done. Julian smiled. He walked over to the portable speaker and pressed play. Soft jazz filled the balcony. Then let's enjoy the weekend, he said, holding out a hand. Dance with me. We danced on the terrace of a $10 million villa, barefoot. It wasn't sexual, not yet. It was intimate. It was two lonely people finding a strange, perfect rhythm in the middle of chaos. The next day was the wedding. If I thought the rehearsal dinner was fancy, the wedding was another universe. It was on a private key. The flowers alone probably cost more than my student loans. I wore a pale gold gown that Julian's stylist had picked out. When I walked out of the bedroom, Julian actually dropped his keys. You look dangerous, he said, grinning. Dangerous is good, I replied. The ceremony was beautiful, but the reception was where things shifted. We were seated at the family table. Champagne flowed. We danced. We laughed. And the act started to bleed into reality. We were on the dance floor, swaying to a slow song. Julian's arms were around me, pulling me close. You know, he murmured into my ear, my brother asked me if I was going to propose to you. My heart skipped a beat. What did you say? I told him that if I was smart, I would. I pulled back to look at him. His blue eyes were serious. Julian, I said warningly, don't say things just to be charming. I'm not, he said. Maya, I date models, I date heiresses, they're boring. They care about the jet and the name. You got stranded in a foreign country and you turned it into an adventure. You stood up to my mother. You're real. He kissed me. It wasn't a show for the guests. It was soft, then deep, then consuming. The world fell away. When we broke apart, I felt dizzy. I think, I whispered, that I might like being your plus one. The weekend was a dream. We went snorkeling the next morning. We ate conch fritters at a roadside stand. Julian's security detail looked nervous, but Julian loved it. We talked about everything, his pressure to run the family firm, my dream of starting my own design agency. For 48 hours, Greg didn't exist. But reality has a way of crashing the party. Monday morning arrived. The G650 was waiting to take us back to Chicago. The flight back was quieter. The bubble was popping. We were going back to the city where my ex-fiancé and my real life were waiting. When we landed at O'Hare Private Terminal, it was raining. Gray, cold Chicago rain. A black SUV was waiting to take me home. Julian insisted on coming with me. You don't have to, I said. I can handle Greg. I know you can, Julian said, taking my hand. But I'm not letting you walk into that apartment alone, not when he's desperate and angry. We drove to the apartment I shared with Greg. My stomach was in knots. I used the keypad to unlock the door. I walked in. The apartment was a mess. Suitcases were exploded open on the floor. Greg was sitting on the couch, head in his hands. When he heard the door, he shot up. Maya. He looked wrecked. His eyes were bloodshot. He ran toward me, trying to hug me. Oh my God, I was so worried. I called the police. I called your parents. Where were you? I stepped back, dodging his hug. Julian stepped into the doorway behind me. He didn't say anything. He just stood there, looking large and imposing in his suit. Greg froze. He looked at me, then at Julian. Who is this? Greg demanded, his voice turning shrill. Maya, who is this guy? This is Julian, I said calmly. He's the man who saved me when you left me on the curb. I didn't leave you, Greg shouted, the gaslighting starting immediately. I drove around the block to cool off. I came back 5 minutes later and you were gone. I've been going out of my mind. You blocked my number, Greg, I said, pulling out my phone and showing him the screenshot I had taken. You canceled my ticket. You stole my wallet. I was trying to teach you a lesson, he screamed. You were being a bitch about the money. The money you lost, Julian spoke up. His voice was ice cold. The money you stole from her. Greg puffed up his chest, trying to intimidate Julian. It was laughable. Julian was 6'2" and boxed in his spare time. Greg was a hungover gambler. Get out of my house, Greg spat at Julian. This is between me and my fiancé. Ex-fiancé, I corrected. I walked past Greg into the bedroom. I grabbed a duffel bag. I started throwing things in. My laptop, my jewelry box, my clothes. Greg followed me. Maya, stop, you're overreacting. Look, I'm sorry, okay? I messed up, but you can't just leave. We're getting married in 2 months. There is no wedding, Greg, I said, zipping the bag. I'm canceling the venue tomorrow. I'm taking my name off the lease. You can't pay for the cancellation fees, he sneered. You're broke. I stopped. I looked at him. Actually, Julian said from the doorway, leaning against the frame. She's not broke, she's with me. Greg laughed, a nasty, incredulous laugh. Oh, I get it. You hooked up with some sugar daddy at the airport. You sold yourself for a flight home. That's classy, Maya, real classy. I walked up to Greg. I slapped him. It was a crisp, loud crack that echoed in the room. I didn't sell myself, I said, my voice shaking with rage. I saved myself. I met a man who treated me with more respect in 5 minutes than you have in 5 years. I'm leaving, Greg. And if you try to contact me, if you come near me, Julian's lawyers will bury you so deep you'll need a map to find sunlight. I looked at Julian. Is that accurate? Julian smiled. Very accurate, and just so we're clear, Greg, I bought her debt. The catering deposit, the credit card you maxed out in her name, I paid it off this morning. You now owe me. Greg went pale. And I'm not as forgiving as Maya, Julian added. I expect a payment plan by Friday. I grabbed my bag. Goodbye, Greg. I walked out of the apartment. I didn't look back. We got into the SUV. As the door closed, I burst into tears. Not sad tears, relief tears. Julian pulled me into his arms. He let me cry. It's over, he whispered. You're free. I don't have anywhere to go, I realized, wiping my eyes. I can't go to my parents, they'll ask too many questions. Well, Julian said, I have a penthouse in the Gold Coast. It has 5 bedrooms. I think we can find you one. I looked at him. Julian, you've done enough. I can't impose. Maya, he took my hand. You're not imposing. We have a debriefing to do. We have to discuss the wedding gossip. And I was hoping you'd let me take you on a real first date. No fake backstory, just us. I smiled. The rain was hammering against the window, but I felt warm. A real date, I asked. Dinner, tonight, somewhere quiet, he said. Okay, I said, but I'm paying. Julian threw his head back and laughed. I wouldn't expect anything else. Living in Julian's penthouse was an adjustment. I tried to be a good roommate. I made coffee in the morning. I kept my stuff in the guest suite. But it's hard to keep things platonic when your roommate looks like a GQ cover model and walks around in gray sweatpants. For 2 weeks, we danced around it. We went on dates, real dates. We went to a jazz club. We went to a Bulls game, courtside, obviously. We ate deep dish pizza on his living room floor. It was easy. It was terrifyingly easy. But I was waiting for the other shoe to drop. I was waiting for him to get bored. I was waiting for him to realize I was just the girl from the airport, a charity case he picked up. One night I came home from work. I had landed a freelance contract, finally, to find Julian in the kitchen. He was cooking. Risotto, I asked, smelling the garlic. My grandmother's recipe, he said. Pour some wine. We ate on the terrace, overlooking the city lights. So, Julian said, wiping his mouth, I have a charity gala next week, the Children's Hospital benefit. Do you need a +1? I joked. I still have the green dress. I don't want a +1, Julian said. He put his fork down. I want my girlfriend to come. I froze. Julian. I know, he said, holding up a hand. It's fast, it's crazy. We met at an airport terminal while you were crying. But Maya, look me in the eye and tell me you don't feel this. I looked at him. I felt it in my toes. I felt it in my chest. I feel it, I whispered. But I'm scared. You're you, and I'm just me. I'm a graphic designer with trust issues. You're the woman who made me laugh at my own brother's wedding, Julian said. You're the woman who stood up to Greg. You're smart, you're kind, and you're beautiful. I don't care about the money, Maya. I have enough money for 10 lifetimes. I want a partner. He stood up and walked around the table. He pulled me up. Be my girlfriend, Maya, for real. I looked at this man who had saved me, not just from the airport, but from a life of settling for less. Yes, I said. He kissed me, and this time it wasn't for a crowd. It was a promise. 6 months later. The charity gala was in full swing. I was wearing a new dress, midnight blue this time. I was holding a glass of champagne. Talking to the hospital director about a new logo design I was donating. I felt a hand on my back. Julian. Having fun? He asked. Actually, yes, I smiled. Suddenly, there was a commotion at the entrance. Security was blocking someone. A man was shouting. I turned. It was Greg. Of course it was Greg. He looked disheveled. He was wearing a cheap suit. He was trying to push past the bouncer. I know she's in there, Greg shouted. Maya, Maya, come out here. The room went quiet. People stared. Julian's face went hard. He started to move toward the door, but I stopped him. No, I said. I got this. I handed Julian my glass. I walked toward the entrance. The sea of wealthy donors parted for me. I stood before Greg. He looked at me, his eyes widening. I looked different. I stood taller. I wasn't the girl who shrank to fit his ego anymore. Greg, I said calmly, what are you doing here? I saw the pictures, Greg slurred. He was drunk. In the society pages, you and him, you think you're so special. You're a gold digger, Maya, everyone knows it. Sir, you need to leave, the security guard said. Tell them, Maya, Greg shouted. Tell them how you left me, tell them. I'll tell them, I interrupted, my voice clear and projecting. I'll tell them that you gambled away our future. I'll tell them you abandoned me in a foreign country without a dime. And I'll tell them that leaving you was the best decision I ever made. Greg opened his mouth, but no words came out. He looked at the crowd. He saw their judgment. He saw Julian standing behind me, looking ready to dismantle him. You're nothing, Greg spat, weak and petty. I'm happy, I said, and that drives you crazy, doesn't it? I turned to the security guard. Please remove him. He's ruining the vibe. The guard nodded and grabbed Greg's arm. Let's go, buddy. As they dragged him out, Greg screaming obscenities, I didn't feel angry. I didn't feel sad. I felt bored. He was a ghost from a past life. I turned back to the room. Everyone was looking at me. Julian walked up. He took my hand and raised it to his lips. My hero, he murmured. I learned from the best, I said. The band started playing. Julian pulled me onto the dance floor. You know, he said as we swayed, my brother's wedding was on an island. Maybe we should do something different. I looked up at him. Are you proposing, Mr. Thorpe? Not yet, he grinned. I'm saving that for Paris next month. Act surprised. I laughed. I rested my head on his chest, listening to his heartbeat. I thought about the girl sitting on the plastic bench in Nassau, thinking her life was over. I wanted to go back and tell her. It's not over, it's just beginning. Paris sounds perfect, I said. And as we danced, I knew it would be.